The night market on planet Viren was alive with noise and light. Bright neon signs hung over narrow streets, flashing strange alien words in colors that hurt human eyes. Merchants shouted to sell shiny weapons, glowing fruits, and living pets. In cages, strange smells of hot food and burning metal filled the air. At the far corner of the market, where the light was dim and the crowd was thin, a young alien girl sat chained to a rusted post. Her clothes were torn, her feet bare, and her large silver eyes stared at the ground. The other traders didn't even bother to call out her price. They only shook their heads and whispered to each other, "She's broken." "Useless," one said. "No powers at all." Another replied, "She won't survive the week." A third voice laughed. Her skin, pale like moonlight, had faint glowing marks that ran from her neck to her wrists, but the glow was weak, almost gone. Every now and then, she would lift her head, look at the stars above, and then quickly look down again, as if the stars reminded her of something she had lost. No one came close to her. When people walked by, they stared for a second and then moved on. Some parents even pulled their children away, as if she carried a disease. To them, she was not a person. She was a mistake, a failed creation, a thing to be sold for whatever scrap she was worth. Hours passed. The crowd grew louder in the center of the market, but the corner where the girl sat stayed quiet. The air around her felt heavy, as if the sadness she carried could be touched. Then, a shadow fell over her. She slowly lifted her head, expecting to see another cruel face. Instead, she saw a tall figure, a human man, dressed in a long, dark coat that reached his boots. His face was partly hidden by the hood of his coat, but his eyes, sharp, deep, and searching, locked onto hers. He didn't say anything at first. He just looked at her. And she felt something strange. It was not pity. Not like the fake pity she sometimes saw in passing strangers. It was something else, something like recognition. The merchant, an old alien with green scales, noticed the man and laughed. "You don't want her? Human," he said. "She's broken. Worth nothing. I'll sell her for 1 coin, but you'll regret it." The man didn't look at the merchant. His eyes stayed on the girl. "What's her name?" he asked, his voice calm. The merchant shrugged. "She doesn't speak. Hasn't since we found her. If she even had a name, she's forgotten it." The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a single coin. It was dull and scratched, but it was enough. He placed it in the merchant's hand. The merchant stared at him in disbelief. "You're serious? For her?" The man simply nodded. The chain was unlocked with a click. The girl stood slowly, her thin legs trembling. The crowd nearby had started to notice. Whispers spread quickly. A human bought the broken one. He wasted his money. Maybe. He's crazy. The man ignored them. He turned to the girl. "You can walk?" he asked. She nodded weakly, her voice silent. They began to move through the market. She followed him without question, though she kept glancing back as if afraid someone might pull her away. They reached the edge of the market where the noise faded into the cool night air. The stars above were brighter here, far from the neon lights. The man stopped and looked at her again. The glowing marks on her skin seemed a little brighter now. "Those marks," he said quietly, "they mean something, don't they?" She didn't answer. Her eyes darted to the shadows, and she shivered. The man sighed. "All right. You don't have to speak," he said, and began walking again that night. They reached a small shelter made of metal panels, hidden in the rocky hills outside the city. Inside, the air was warm and the floor was clean. The man gave her a blanket and a bowl of food. She ate slowly, as if she was not used to eating so much. When she finished, she curled up in a corner and closed her eyes. The man sat nearby, watching the stars through a small window. The wind outside whispered against the metal walls. He was about to fall asleep when he heard another whisper. It was soft, like a voice carried on the wind. but it was inside his mind. "Help me," the voice said, trembling and afraid. He looked around. The girl was still curled in the corner, her eyes closed, but the voice came again. "Help me." Before they come, the man froze. He knew then that she was not broken. She was something else, something dangerous, and someone or something was coming for her. The man didn't sleep that night. He sat in the corner of his small shelter, his back against the cold wall, watching the alien girl as she slept. Her breathing was soft, her small frame hidden under the blanket he had given her. But in the faint light from the window, he could see her glowing marks, brighter now than in the market. They pulsed slowly, like the rhythm of a heartbeat. He kept hearing her voice in his head. "Help me." Before they come, it had been hours since the whisper, but it still echoed in his mind. It was not the kind of voice one could forget. It wasn't just fear in that voice. It was desperation, the kind that came from knowing there was no escape. The man's name was Rin Hale. Once a soldier, now a drifter, he had seen many strange things in his travels across the colonies. But never an alien like her. He didn't know why he had bought her. Maybe it was the way she looked at him. Maybe it was the feeling in his chest, the quiet certainty that she mattered. Even if he didn't know why, by morning, the sun rose. Over the red hills, a pale light spilled into the shelter. And the girl woke slowly. Her silver eyes blinked against the light. And she pulled the blanket tighter. "You're safe," Rin said softly. She stared at him but didn't speak. Rin crouched down to her level. "I'm Rin. I'm Rin. I'm human, obviously. What about you? Do you have a name?" She hesitated, her lips parting as if to speak. But then she shook her head. "No name." Rin frowned. "Well, until you tell me otherwise, I'll call you Lyra," he said, after a pause. Something in her eyes shifted the smallest flicker of surprise. Lyra, the name hung in the air like a seed dropped into soil. Rin prepared a small breakfast. Lyra ate slowly again, her eyes darting around the room as if she didn't trust the safety of the place. When she finished, she went to the small window and looked out at the hills. Her glowing marks dimmed a little. "They will find me," she said suddenly. Her voice quiet but clear. Rin's hand froze halfway to his mouth. "You can talk," he said. Surprised, she didn't answer his comment. Instead, she repeated, "They will find me. They always do." "Who?" Rin asked. Her hands tightened into fists. "The ones who made me." "The ones who broke me," she said. She turned to face him, and for the first time, he saw the weight in her eyes, a kind of tiredness no child should have. "They put me in a place. A lab. They tested me. They said I was a failed one. I could not control my power. So they wanted to throw me away." Her voice cracked on the last words. Rin leaned forward. "What power?" he asked. She looked down at her glowing marks. "They said I was born with light inside me. Light that could move things, break things, protect things. But I couldn't make it work. Not like the others." Her silver eyes lifted to meet his. "Until I met you." Rin felt his stomach tighten. "What do you mean?" "When you looked at me, when you touched the chain?" "I felt it." "The light," she said. Her marks glowed brighter for a brief moment, filling the room with a soft, white-blue shimmer. Rin took a step back. He had seen strange weapons and alien tech, but this was different. This was alive. "All right," he said slowly. "If they're looking for you, we can't stay here." She nodded, almost as if she had been expecting him to say that, by afternoon, they had packed supplies, food, water, a small blaster Rin kept hidden. They left the shelter and moved through the rocky hills, staying low and out of sight. The wind carried dust that stung their eyes. But Lyra didn't complain. Rin kept scanning the horizon, every shadow and glint of light making his hand twitch toward his weapon. When night fell, they camped in a hollow under a ridge. The stars were huge above them. Lyra sat by the small Fire Rin had built, staring into the flames. "You could have left me there," she said suddenly. "Yeah, I could have," Rin replied. "But I didn't." "Why?" Rin was silent for a moment, then said, "Because I've seen what happens. To the ones nobody helps." "I'm not letting that happen to you." Lyra's eyes softened just slightly. She pulled her knees to her chest and watched the fire in silence. Rin sat across from her. But his thoughts were on the hills behind them, the market, the voices. The way people had laughed when he bought her. Something told him that laughter would not last long. That night, as Rin drifted into sleep, the voice came again. "Help me." Before they come, but this time, it was different. This time, the voice added something new. "They're already here." Rin's eyes snapped open. Somewhere in the distance, he saw lights moving through the hills. Too smooth, too bright, to be natural. Not stars, not fire. Searchlights. They had found her. Rin didn't waste a second. He reached over and shook Lyra's shoulder. She woke with a startled gasp, her silver eyes flashing in the firelight. "They're here," Rin said in a low voice. Her eyes darted to the horizon, and she saw them. Thin beams of white light cutting across the dark hills. Moving closer, her body went rigid. "They found me," she whispered. And the marks on her skin began to glow faintly. Rin grabbed his small bag and threw dirt over the fire until the flames died. "Move," he said. They climbed up the ridge in the darkness. The rocky ground sharp under their feet. Lyra moved quickly, despite her small size. Never looking back, Rin kept glancing over his shoulder, and each time the lights were closer. Whoever was following them was moving fast, too fast for normal. Patrols, they reached a cluster of jagged rocks that formed a narrow passage. Rin pushed her inside first, the space barely wide enough for them to pass through. They emerged on the other side. Hidden from the lights for now, Rin crouched low, breathing hard. "Who are they?" he asked. "The ones who made me," Lyra said, her voice trembling. "The ones who said I was broken." Her eyes met his. "You can't fight them, Rin," she said. "They have ships, weapons. They will take me back." Rin's jaw tightened. "Not while I'm still breathing," he replied. Then, without warning, the voice returned, not in his ears, but in his mind. It was sharper this time. Urgent. "Rin, hail. Listen to me." He froze, his eyes snapping to Lyra. Her mouth wasn't moving, but her gaze was locked on his. "They're not here for you," the voice continued. "They're here for what I carry." Rin's pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" Said out loud, Lyra's expression darkened. "They didn't just make me," she said. "They put something inside me. Something they want back." The lights were closer now, the sound of engines echoing faintly across the hills. Rin scanned. The rocks around them, no easy escape. "What's inside you?" he asked again. Lyra's voice in his mind answered. "Something old. Something they don't understand. Something I can't control." Her glowing marks flared brighter for a second, then faded again. It was enough to make Rin's stomach tighten. He had seen unstable tech before, and it never ended well. "All right," he said, keeping his voice steady. "We find a place to hide until morning. Then we move far from here." Lyra shook her head. "They won't stop. They will follow us across worlds. The only way to be safe is to make me whole again." Rin frowned. "What does that mean?" She stepped closer, her silver eyes shining faintly. "When they called me broken, it was because they split my power into pieces," she said. "They took part of it away, locked it in something, hid it far from me." Her voice in his mind added, "If I can find it, I will be able to fight them and protect you." Rin looked at her for a long moment. "You think I'm helping you because I need protection?" he asked, a faint smile touching his lips. "I'm helping you because someone has to." Lyra stared at him, her expression unreadable. Then she whispered, No one has ever said that to me before. The engines grew louder, and Rin cursed. Under his breath, he motioned for her to follow, and they crept along the ridge, staying in the shadows every now and then. Lyra would close her eyes, and Rin could feel her voice in his head. Left. There's a gap in the rocks. We can hide there. It was strange. The more she spoke in his mind, the less it felt unnatural. It was like a quiet thread linking them together. They found the gap, a hollow between two massive stones, hidden by loose rock and dry plants. It was small and cold, but it gave them cover. Rin crouched at the entrance, watching the beams of light sweep across the ridge above. One passed dangerously close, and Lyra's marks flared just slightly before dimming again. Don't glow. Rin whispered. I can't help it, she replied. The searchlights passed. And for a moment, all was quiet except for the sound of the wind. Then, faintly, they heard footsteps, not human, not heavy, but sharp and metallic. Rin's grip tightened on his blaster. One of the lights stopped moving, holding steady on a section of the ridge. Then a voice, mechanical, cold, echoed. Across the hills, subject Lyra detected. Capture protocol engaged. Rin glanced at her. Run or fight? He asked. Her voice entered his mind again. If we fight now, I will lose. If we run, we might live. But they will still follow. The footsteps were closer now, the metallic click of weapons being readied. Rin made his choice. He grabbed her hand and pulled her from the hollow, running into the dark hills behind them. The cold voice spoke again. Target in motion. Do not destroy. She is worth more alive. Lyra stumbled once, but Rin pulled her up. Her marks flared brighter and brighter until they cast light on the ground ahead. Lyra, Rin began. But before he could finish, the ground beneath them trembled. She gasped, and her voice filled his mind. I can feel it. The other half of me. It's close. Rin's eyes widened. You mean your power? She nodded quickly. It's here, on this world. That's why they came. It's not just for me, for it, from behind. The beams of light cut through the darkness, and metallic figures stepped into view. Rin raised his blaster. Lyra's marks blazed so bright they burned white. And then, the rocks around them began to move. The rocks shuddered under Rin's boots, loose stones tumbled down the slope, and a deep, low sound rumbled from somewhere beneath the ground. Lyra stood in front of him, her silver eyes wide, her glowing marks burning brighter than he had ever. Seeing the light spilling from her skin was no longer weak. It was alive, pulsing like a living flame. What's happening? Rin shouted over the rumble. Lyra's voice echoed in his mind, sharp and urgent. It's waking up. The part they took from me. It's here. The metallic soldiers at the ridge raised their weapons. Thin red lasers cut through the dust-filled air. Locking onto their targets, Rin aimed his blaster and fired. The crack of each shot echoing across the hills. 2 soldiers fell, their metal limbs sparking. But more were already moving down the slope. They were fast, too fast for human reflexes. Lyra stepped forward, her bare feet crunching over stone. The light from her marks flared again, spilling into the ground beneath her. The earth responded. Jagged shards of rock rose from the dirt, twisting into sharp spears that blocked the soldiers' advance. Rin froze, staring. That's new, he muttered. But Lyra's face was tight with pain. Her knees trembled, as if holding the power inside her was a battle all on its own. The soldiers fired, blasts of energy smashing into the rock spears, breaking them apart. Rin fired again. Dropping another soldier. Lyra, we have to move. He called, her voice pushed into his head again, stronger this time. I can't run. Not yet. I have to take it back. Before Rin could ask what she meant, the ground split open behind her. A deep crack tore through the earth, glowing with the same white-blue light as her marks. From the crack, something rose, Not metal, not stone, but a crystal, tall as a man and glowing with impossible brightness. The soldiers hesitated for the first time, their heads tilting as if scanning the object. Lyra turned to face it. Her marks blazed even brighter, and the light from her skin reached out toward the crystal. The glow met in midair, like two streams joining into one. The crystal pulsed in response, sending waves of light into the surrounding. Rock's Rin took a step toward her. Lyra, what is that? Her voice was in his mind again, but this time it was deeper, stronger, layered with something ancient. It's mine. The piece they stole. My heart of light, the soldiers moved again. Breaking their hesitation, they fired at the crystal, but the blasts vanished before touching it. Swallowed by the light, Lyra lifted her hands, her small body trembling under the strain. The glow wrapped around the crystal like vines. Pulling it toward her, Rin's instincts screamed. Whatever was happening was dangerous. He ran to her side, keeping his blaster ready. Lyra, hurry. Ataya. I'm trying. She gasped. This time out loud, the nearest soldier leaped over the rocks. Landing only meters away, Rin fired point blank, the shot blowing a hole through its chest. Sparks flew, and the machine fell, but more followed, too many to fight one by one then, with a sound like breaking glass. The crystal shattered into 1,000 fragments of light. They didn't fall to the ground. They shot toward Lyra, piercing into her marks, disappearing into her skin. Her body jerked as if the force of it was too much, and the glow became blinding. Rin shielded his eyes. The rumbling grew louder. Rocks cracking and splitting all around them. When he looked again, Lyra was standing taller, her silver eyes burning. With fierce light, her voice in his mind was no longer weak. It was sharp, it's clear, and filled with power. I am whole again. The soldiers froze. As if their systems couldn't process the change, Lyra lifted one hand, and with a single motion, a wave of light blasted outward. The air shook, and every soldier within 50 meters was thrown back, their metal bodies slamming into the rocks. Some sparked and fell still. Others scrambled to stand, but none came closer. Rin stared at her. You weren't lying, he said quietly. She turned her gaze to him, the glow still radiating from her skin. They thought I was broken. Because I was incomplete, she said. Now they will see what I really am. But before Rin could respond, the sky above them roared. 2 massive ships descended from the clouds, their searchlights cutting the night apart. Rows of soldiers began to drop from the ships on metal cables. Lyra's light dimmed slightly, and she swayed on her feet. Rin caught her before she could fall. You're strong, he said, but there's too many. We can't stay here. Her voice in his head was quieter now. We leave. But not far. There's one more thing I need before they take me again. Rin glanced at the ships, then back at her. You're going to have to explain on the way. She gave the smallest smile. If we survive this, the ground shook again, as the soldiers landed all around them, encircling the ridge. The cold voice from before spoke, echoing from every direction. Subject, Lyra, surrender. Return with us. You have no chance of escape. Rin raised his blaster. Lyra's marks began to glow once more, and in the sky above, lightning formed where there should have been none. The lightning tore across the sky in jagged lines. White-blue light flashed over the ridge, turning the metal soldiers into dark silhouettes. For a single heartbeat, everyone froze, as if the air itself was holding still. Then Rin shouted, "Move." He pulled Lyra by the hand, and they sprinted down the slope. Boots slipping on loose stone, behind them, the cold voice came again. Pursuit protocol engaged. Blaster fire lit up the night, red beams slicing past their heads, burning holes. Into the rocks, Rin fired back without slowing, dropping one soldier, but 3 more replaced it. The sound of engines rumbled above. The ships were following them, searchlights sweeping the ground like hungry eyes. Faster. Rin yelled, though he could already hear Lyra's quick breathing. She was keeping pace, her glowing marks casting faint light around them. Every few steps, her power flared in small bursts. A rock shifting to block a soldier, a patch of ground, splitting to make a sudden gap. But each use seemed to take a toll, her glow dimming slightly each time they reached a narrow canyon. Its walls high and jagged. This way. Rin said the canyon forced the soldiers into a single line, slowing them just enough for the humans to gain ground. But the ships above simply adjusted, sending thin cables down into the canyon, dropping more soldiers ahead of them. Lyra's voice hit Rin's mind like a sharp bell. Left. There's a tunnel in the wall. He spotted it. A dark hole halfway up the canyon wall, barely big enough to crawl through. How do we get up there? Rin asked. Her marks flared, and a section of rock pushed outward like a staircase. Go. She shouted, this time out loud. They scrambled up, slipping on the uneven stone. The first soldiers reached the base, just as Rin pulled Lyra into the tunnel. Blaster shots hit the wall, filling the space with sparks and the smell of scorched stone. Inside the tunnel was tight and twisting, the air cold and stale. Rin moved first, blaster ready, while Lyra followed close behind. The sound of pursuit faded slightly, replaced by the echo of their footsteps. Where does this go? Rin asked. Her voice in his mind was softer now. If I'm right. Out of the canyon. But it's not safe on the other side either. They reached an opening that looked out over another stretch of rocky hills. The ships were still above, but their lights were sweeping the canyon instead. For the moment, the open ground ahead was clear. They slid down the slope and began moving again. This time, Lyra's glow stayed dim. She was conserving what little strength she had. Rin kept scanning the horizon, and that's when he saw it. A small cluster of close to press. A small cluster of cloyoplas. And lies a law last cloyopla. Long last calar last. My log, closo way, servies. Mila salasa way, malas. Mila clo. Mila celesta, Mila claf. Sips. So wise, why, we miss us. I mead, I be aside, about to is it. Be I sit, I be up and slide, kai cly, we lie apply, dots a subika cat a bit, a siki guys it, sick it, it's deed, you kit to sit, the cut it, sick did it, cut a stick up, tip, whip I soap sick, it's get the beak of the structures in the distance, half buried in sand and stone. Shelter? He asked. Lyra shook her head. No. That's one of their outposts. Rin's heart sank. Then we go around. He stopped when Lyra grabbed his arm, her silver eyes fixed on the outpost. No, we go inside. Inside? Are you out of your mind? Rin hissed. She stepped closer, her voice in his mind like a whisper of wind. There's something in there I need. Without it, I can't win. Before Rin could argue, a deep hum filled the air, a sound he had learned to fear. He looked up to see one of the ships breaking away from the canyon and heading straight toward them. They've spotted us, he said. Lyra's marks flared once more. Then we run faster. They charged toward the outpost, dust kicking up behind them. The ship's searchlight locked onto their position, blinding in its brightness. A voice boomed from above. Subject, Lyra. Stop. You cannot escape. Rin fired at the light. Forcing it to swing away for a moment, the ship responded by lowering soldiers from cables. Dropping them directly into their path, Lyra thrust her hand forward, and the ground erupted in a jagged wall of stone, blocking the first wave. But the effort made her stumble, her knees almost giving out. Rin caught her before she fell. Just a little more, he said, pushing her forward. They reached the first structure, a tall, weathered tower with its doors half buried in sand. Rin kicked the door in, the rusted hinges screeching, and they tumbled inside. The air smelled of dust and machine oil. Dim emergency lights flickered along the walls. Lyra moved toward a sealed hatch at the far end, her marks glowing faintly. "Again, this way," she said aloud, surprising him. "How do you know?" Her voice in his mind was calm but urgent, "Because I've been here before." Before Rin could ask what she meant, the sound of boots hitting metal echoed from behind. The soldiers were inside. Rin turned, blaster raised. Lyra placed her hands on the hatch, her glow spilling into the seams. With a sharp click, the hatch unlocked, swinging open to reveal a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. "Go," Rin said, covering her as she descended. He followed quickly, pulling the hatch shut behind them. The air below was colder, the sound of machinery humming faintly in the distance. Lyra's marks lit the stairwell just enough to see at the bottom. The narrow stairs opened into a wide chamber filled with strange equipment. In the center stood a pod, sleek, black, and covered in alien symbols. Lyra's eyes locked on it. "That's it," she said in his mind. "The last thing I need, before Rin could reply. The ceiling above shook violently, dust raining down. A harsh, metallic voice echoed from the stairwell. "You cannot hide, Lyra. You belong to us." Rin stepped between her and the stairs. Lyra placed her hands on the pod, her glow flaring. Once more, the hum of the machines deepened, and the whole room began to tremble. The pod vibrated under Lyra's hands. Its black surface shimmered. The alien symbols shifting like liquid metal. A low hum filled the room, deep enough to make the floor tremble under Rin's boots. "Lyra, what is this thing?" Rin asked, keeping his blaster aimed at the staircase. Her silver eyes flicked to him for a moment, her voice pressing into his mind. "It's not a weapon. It's a memory." "A memory?" he repeated, confused. Before she could explain, heavy footsteps thundered down the stairs. The metallic clang echoing off the walls. Rin fired up the steps, forcing the first soldier to retreat. Sparks flying from its armor. Behind it, more shadows appeared, too many, too close. Lyra pressed her glowing palms harder against the pod. The hum grew louder until the air seemed to shake. White blue light seeped from the seams of the pod, wrapping around her arms like threads of silk. Then, in a sudden burst, the pod split open, not with a mechanical click, but with a sound like breaking ice. Inside was light, not an object, not a crystal, but pure. Living light swirling like a tiny galaxy, it floated upward, circling around Lyra before sinking into her chest. Disappearing into the glowing marks on her skin, Rin stared. "You're absorbing." Her voice cut into his thoughts, sharper now. "No, I'm remembering who I am." The soldiers reached the bottom of the stairs, weapons raised. Rin took aim. But before he could fire, the entire chamber shifted. The machines lining the walls began to spark and hum. The air thick with static. Lyra lifted her head, and her silver eyes now burned with a fierce, unnatural glow when she spoke. It was both in his mind and out loud. "I was made to protect, not to destroy." She raised one hand toward the soldiers. The air between them rippled, and a wall of blinding light exploded outward. The first wave of soldiers was thrown back into the stairwell like rag dolls, their metal bodies slamming into each other. The walls shook with the force. Dust and debris raining down. Rin lowered his blaster. "Stunned. You couldn't do that before," he said. Her gaze didn't leave the stairwell. "I couldn't. Because I wasn't whole." But even as she spoke, Rin noticed the strain on her face. The light pouring from her marks wasn't steady. It flickered like a candle in a storm. "How long can you keep this up?" he asked. Her answer came in his mind. Quieter. "Long enough to end this. Or long enough to fall trying." The soldiers regrouped, adapting to her power. They began firing in coordinated bursts. Their shots slicing through the light. Lyra winced. Stumbling slightly, Rin stepped beside her, firing into the gaps, dropping 2 more soldiers. The cold voice from the ship echoed again through some hidden speaker. You were never meant to awaken, Lyra. Your design was flawed. Return, and you will be repaired. Lyra's eyes narrowed. I am not broken, she said aloud, her voice carrying a strange weight. Then she lifted both hands, and the entire floor seemed to rise beneath the soldiers' feet. The ground bent, upward like a wave, tossing them back toward the stairs again. Rin grabbed her arm. We can't hold them here forever, he said. Her gaze flicked to the far wall, a section of stone that seemed different from the rest. Smoother, almost like a door. There's a way out, she told him. But it leads somewhere they'll never follow. Rin didn't have time to ask what she meant. She ran to the wall, pressed her glowing hands against it, and the stone dissolved into white light, opening into a swirling tunnel that hummed with strange energy. The air on the other side shimmered like heat, but instead of warmth, a cold wind blew from within. Rin hesitated. What's in there? Lyra turned to him, her expression unreadable. The place where I was made, and the place I swore never to return to. Before he could respond, the ceiling above cracked. A huge chunk of metal crashing to the floor. The ships were directly overhead now, their weapons pounding at the structure. More soldiers poured into the room, their eyes glowing red in the flickering light. Lyra stepped toward the tunnel, but then stopped, looking at Rin. If you come with me, there's no going back, she said. He glanced at the soldiers. Then at the tunnel. Not much to go back to, he said, and followed her. The moment they stepped into the tunnel, the world twisted. The sound of battle faded. Replaced by a low, endless hum, the light wrapped around them, pulling them forward faster and faster. Rin tried to keep his balance, but it felt like falling and flying at the same time. Then, without warning, they stumbled out onto solid ground. Rin looked around and froze. The sky above was black, lit only by faint streaks of pale green light. The ground was smooth and metallic, stretching out in all directions. Far in the distance, towering shapes moved slowly. Their forms too large to be human, too precise to be alive. Lyra's voice entered. His mind, again, steady but grim. This is where they made me. And if we're not careful, it's where they'll end both of us. The metallic ground beneath Rin's boots was cold. Every step echoed in the vast emptiness above. The black sky shifted with slow-moving green light, like distant storms trapped behind glass. The air was thin, tasting faintly of metal. Lyra walked ahead, her glowing marks brighter here than they had ever been. They built this place far from any star. She said quietly, her voice both in his mind and out loud. It was never meant to be found. Rin scanned the horizon. Huge towers rose in the distance, each shaped like a spear aimed at the sky. Between them, giant machines moved with heavy precision, their footsteps making the ground vibrate. They didn't look like soldiers. They looked like builders. Or jailers. What now? Rin asked. Lyra stopped, turning toward the nearest tower. They keep the core there, she said. The thing that controls the ones who are made like me. If I destroy it, I free them all. Rin raised an eyebrow. How many are we talking about? Her eyes darkened. Thousands. They moved carefully across the metallic plain. Staying in the shadows of the towers, the machines ignored them at first, focused on their slow, endless work. But as they approached the central tower, the green light above began to pulse. A voice, not cold like the one from the ships, but vast and layered, rolled across the air. Lyra, you have returned. Rin froze, looking around for the source. It's the core. Lyra whispered. Her voice in his mind was sharper. It's already watching us. The ground beneath them shifted. Plates of metal sliding aside to reveal glowing pathways from the edges. New soldiers rose taller, sleeker, and faster than the ones before. Their eyes burned with green light. They didn't speak, but their presence felt heavy, like they were waiting for a command. Lyra stepped forward. "I am not yours," she said. Her marks flared so brightly that Rin had to squint. The soldiers shifted. Uneasily, but did not attack. The Core's voice came again. "You are incomplete. Return to us, and you will be made perfect." Lyra's jaw tightened. "I am not broken." She said again, louder. The ground between her and the tower cracked, white-blue light spilling upward. The soldiers moved at last, charging toward them. Rin opened fire, his shots echoing in the vast space. Lyra raised her hands, and the light from her skin surged outward. It met the soldiers like a wave, throwing them back, but more kept coming. Her voice pushed into Rin's head, urgent. "I can't hold them forever. Get to the tower." Rin didn't argue. He sprinted toward the base of the massive structure. Ducking behind fallen pieces of machinery, the tower's surface was smooth, but a narrow access hatch stood at ground level. He blasted the lock, the metal melting just enough to break. The door slid open with a hiss, and he turned back. Toward Lyra. "Come on." She broke from the fight and ran to him, her light dimming with each step. The soldiers closed in from all sides, but the moment she crossed into the tower, the ground shifted again, sealing the hatch behind them. Inside, the air was cooler, and a deep hum filled the space. A spiral walkway wound upward toward a chamber of blinding green light at the top. "That's it," Lyra said, pointing upward, the core. They climbed quickly, their footsteps ringing on the metal. Halfway up, the core's voice filled the space. "You think you can destroy me, child? You are made of my design. You are mine." Lyra's voice in his mind was calm but unshaken. "No, I am mine." They reached the top, a wide circular chamber with the core floating in the center. It was a sphere of shifting green light, larger than both of them, its surface rippling like water. Lyra stepped toward it, her glow growing stronger again. Rin stayed back, blaster ready, though he knew it wouldn't matter against something like this. The core spoke again. "If you break me, you break yourself." Lyra hesitated, her hands trembling. Rin's voice cut through the silence. "Lyra, you told me once you wanted to protect, not destroy. What happens if you do this?" Her silver eyes met his eye. "Protect them. But I lose everything I am." For a moment, the hum of the core was the only sound. Then she smiled, small but real. "It's worth it." She stepped into the light. Her glow merged with the core's green energy, and for a moment, the entire chamber was blinding. Rin shielded his eyes. When the light faded, the core cracked. A deep sound rolling through the tower. The green light dimmed to nothing. Lyra was lying on the floor, her marks faint and no longer glowing. Rin rushed to her. Sighed Lyra, her eyes opened slowly, and her voice brushed his mind. Weaker than he'd ever felt it. "They're free now. I love them." The ground shook violently without the core. The tower was collapsing. Rin lifted her into his arms and ran, the walkway crumbling behind them. They burst through a side hatch just as the structure began to fall. In the distance, the giant machines had stopped moving, their green lights gone. The soldiers that had chased them now stood still, their weapons lowered. Some turned and walked away into the dark, free at last. They reached the edge of the metallic plain. The black sky above seemed lighter now, the green storms fading. Lyra stirred in his arms. "You saw my worth when no one else did," she whispered aloud, "and I'll see it again tomorrow." Rin said, smiling faintly. She gave a tired laugh. "Tomorrow, we find the others," as they walked away from the dead towers. The silence of the world felt different, not empty, but waiting. And somewhere in that silence, Rin knew their story wasn't over.